Rian Calder stood at the edge of the broken city, staring at the dead sky that had once been blue. He had never seen a real blue sky in his life, only old videos and fading memories told by older survivors. Now the sky was always gray, thick with dust, smoke, and the shadows of the alien warships that never left. The Zarnax giants controlled everything above ground. Their ships floated like sharp metal beasts, glowing with red eyes that searched for any human foolish enough to walk in the open. Rian should not have been outside, but something had pulled him to the surface, something he felt in his bones, like the air itself was holding its breath. The ground under his feet trembled. For a moment, he thought it was just another scan wave from the giants, but then he heard a sound he had never heard before. It was deep, loud, like the sky itself was breaking apart. He looked up, confused, and saw fire, bright and wild, cutting through the clouds. At first, he thought it was another human building being destroyed, but then he realized the fire was moving downward, falling fast, too big, too heavy. The shape inside the flames became clearer with every second. It was a Zarnax warship, and it was crashing. Rian's breath caught in his throat. The giants never fell. Their ships were huge, powerful, indestructible. The Zarnax always came out of battles untouched, undefeated, unchallenged. But this ship was falling like a burning star, breaking through the smoke as if some unseen force had struck it down. Rian stepped back, dust blowing into his face as the ship smashed into the far side of the ruined city. The explosion shook the land, sending a wave of sound that echoed across the empty streets. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then distant screams started. But they were not human. Rian had never heard Zarnax soldiers scream in fear. His heart started to race. He ran into the underground entrance and slid down the metal ladder into the dim tunnels below the city. People looked at him as he burst into the main hall, breathless, covered in dust. Small fires from old lamps lit the faces of tired survivors, people who had lived their whole lives in the dark, hiding from the giants above. What happened? A man asked him. Something crashed, Rian said, still catching his breath. A Zarnax ship fell from the sky. The room turned silent. Someone dropped a metal cup. A woman whispered a prayer. Children looked up from their blankets. No one spoke louder than a whisper. The idea alone seemed impossible. Old Myra, one of the elders, shook her head. No human weapon can do that. Not anymore. Rian didn't argue. He knew she was right. Humans had lost everything 50 years ago. Their fleets, their cities, their armors all destroyed in the first wave of the Zarnax invasion. The survivors had been left with nothing but fear. But the Zarnax soldiers were screaming up there. The giants were scared of something. Rian felt it in the vibrations running through the tunnel walls. Later that night, alarms echoed through the underground. People rushed to the communication chamber. A small room filled with old machines that barely worked. Dr. Kira Sol, the scientist who kept their tech alive, stared at a screen glowing with a single line of text repeating again and again. Human fleet phase 1 complete. Everyone froze. The message continued to flash. Calm, steady, confident, like the voice of someone who had never known defeat. Kira looked shocked. This is a human signal, she whispered. This code is from the old fleets, the ones that were destroyed. That means someone survived. A young girl asked. Kira didn't answer. She was staring at the signal with wide eyes. Her hands shaking. Rian stepped closer to the screen. Who could send this? Where is it coming from? Deep space, Kira said. Very far. Too far for any surviving group to reach this. This shouldn't be possible. Before anyone could speak again, another explosion came from above. The ceiling dust shook loose. A sound like metal tearing apart echoed through the streets above ground. Then another cry of Zarnax cry code down into the tunnels. The giants were losing something up there. Kira grabbed an old star map and pointed at a faded route marked in red. This was the path the last human fleet took before they vanished. They were chasing something, or maybe running from something. We never knew. Rian stared at the path and felt something strange move in his chest. A feeling he had never felt before. A feeling that didn't belong to people who lived underground. Hope. Kira stepped close to him. Rian, if this signal is real, then humanity is not finished. Someone out there has power. Enough power to take down a Zarnax warship. The thought seemed unreal, but the fear on the aliens' faces was real. The smoke in the sky was real. The burning ship was real. Later, Rian returned to the surface alone. The night was quiet, but the air felt different, charged with something alive. Far in the distance, he saw a faint blue light cutting across the clouds. It moved silently, fast, like a predator hunting in the dark. It was not Zarnax. Their ships were loud and red, always heavy, always watching. This blue ship was something else, something sharp, something human that had fired once. Just one silent flash and another Zarnax ship exploded in the distance. Rian felt tears gather in his eyes. Not from fear, not from sadness. For the first time in his life, he felt what his father always told him about in old stories. The feeling of humanity standing tall. He whispered into the night, "We're not broken anymore." And above him the blue ship disappeared into the clouds, like a promise waiting to return. Rian Calder barely slept after seeing the silent blue ship in the sky. Even when he closed his eyes, the image stayed in his mind, the flash of light. The falling Viherix ship, the shockwave that rolled across the ruins. His heart still beat fast every time he thought about it. The Viherix giants had ruled Earth for 50 years without fear, without weakness, without losing a single battle. But now, something was hunting them, something human. That idea alone was too big, too strange, too powerful to ignore. So when the morning came, Rian went straight to Dr. Kira Saul's lab in the tunnels. She was already awake, pacing around the blinking machine that received the strange signal. Her tired eyes brightened when she saw him. "It hasn't stopped," she said quietly. On the screen, the message still repeated like a heartbeat. "Human fleet phase 1 complete." Rian stared at the glowing words, feeling a slow chill spread through him. "What does that mean?" he asked. "Phase 1. What did they do? What are they planning?" Kira didn't answer right away. Instead, she adjusted a dial, listened to the soft pulses behind the message, then finally spoke. "This is not a distress call. It's a progress report. It means someone out there is following a plan, a human plan." Her voice shook slightly, a mix of fear and awe. "Rian, this fleet, it has been gone for 50 years. They should all be dead." Rian thought about the blue ship again. "They don't look dead to me." Kira gave a small, breathless laugh. "No, they don't." Before they could speak more, a loud alarm blared through the tunnels. People rushed by the door, shouting that Viherix scouts had entered the ruins near the old hospital. Rian's body tensed. He knew what that meant. The giants were searching for answers. They wanted to know what had killed their warship. They wanted to know if the humans were behind it. And if they suspected the underground tunnels. The memory of old stories flashed in Rian's mind. Years when the Viherix burned entire buildings to flush out survivors. Without thinking, Rian grabbed his jacket and ran toward the tunnel exit. Kira shouted after him, "Rian, don't. It's too dangerous." But he didn't stop. He couldn't. If the Viherix were searching close to the tunnels, everyone was in danger. Rian climbed to the surface and moved silently through the broken alleys. He peeked around the corner and saw 3 Viherix scouts scanning the ground with red lights. The scouts were tall, armored, with thick insect-like legs and claws that could tear metal. Their voices clicked and scraped like grinding knives. One of them smashed a wall with a single strike, sending dust everywhere. Rian stayed hidden behind a collapsed car, his breath shallow, trying not to move. Minutes passed slowly, painfully. Then he heard something unexpected. A Viherix voice trembled. "The Sky Hunt, they return," one scout said in its broken translation device. Another answered, "We must find the source." Before more ships fall, Rian froze. Viherix never sounded scared. Not once. The ground trembled again, but this time not from a crash. It was a pulse, deep and heavy like a heartbeat passing through the earth. The scouts lifted their heads sharply. Rian felt it too. Their eyes flashed, their claws shook, their voices broke into frantic clicks. One scout raised its weapon to shoot at the ship. It didn't get the chance. A thin blue beam flicked from the ship, silent and sharp. The scout fell in 2 clean pieces, its armor melting where the beam had touched. The second scout tried to run but was crushed under falling debris as the ship's gravity field bent the air. The third scout screamed a command into its device. "Reinforcements! Reinforcements!" It looked too advanced, too smooth, too alive to be anything built in old Earth factories. It didn't move like a machine. It moved like a predator, silent, precise, deadly. And it was protecting humans. Rian felt something deep in his chest, not just hope this time. Pride. As he watched, the ship turned slightly, and for a moment he could swear it looked directly at him. A cold shiver ran through his spine. Could they see him? Did they know he was watching? Or maybe they were watching all humans. The ship rose higher, then disappeared into the clouds with the same silent grace. Rian ran back to the tunnels. He found Kira gathering people and telling them to stay calm. When she saw Rian's face, she knew he had seen something. "More ships," he said breathlessly. "Not just one. And they're killing the Viherix scouts." A shock passed through the crowd. People whispered, some covering their mouths, some starting to cry. One man asked with a shaking voice, Are we saved?" Kira lifted her hands to calm them. "Not yet," she said softly. "If the fleet is truly back, then this is only the beginning. And we don't know their plan. We don't know what they want." Rian spoke quietly but firmly, surprising even himself. "They want Earth back." Kira didn't argue. She knew he was right. Night fell, and Rian couldn't sleep again. He sat near the tunnel entrance, staring at the dim cracks of light from above. He thought about the scouts' terrified voices, the silent blue ship, the message repeating like a warning or a promise. Human fleet phase 1 complete. If there was a phase 1, then there was a phase 2. And whatever phase 2 was, Rian knew one thing. The giants were not ready for it, and neither were the humans hiding underground. The next morning the underground tunnels felt different. People spoke in soft, excited whispers instead of tired, hopeless voices. The old lamps flickered as if the air itself was waking up from a long sleep. Rian Calder walked through the hall, noticing how everyone kept looking at the ceiling as if expecting the earth above to open and reveal the fleet. Children asked their parents if they could see the blue ship. Some adults cried quietly, not from fear this time, but from something they had forgotten long ago. But hope could be dangerous too. Rian felt it burning inside him like a small fire that refused to die. Still, he didn't want to let it blind him. The Viharix giants were wounded, not defeated, and wounded monsters could be more dangerous than healthy ones. Rian knew this better than most. Dr. Kira Sol had summoned him to the old command room, a place filled with broken computers and dusty screens. When Rian stepped inside, he found her staring at a hologram. A faint blue line pulsed through the air, representing the female voice that had sent the message. Behind her stood a group of survivors who helped monitor old tech. They looked tired, but alert, as if they had been up all night. Kira's face lit up when she saw him. "Rian," she said quickly. Something else happened. Before he could ask, she pointed at the hologram. A second message arrived. Rian stepped closer. The line pulsed again, repeating the new words, "Human Fleet Phase 2 in motion." Rian felt chills run down his spine. "They're moving," he whispered. "But towards what?" Kira took a deep breath. "The message contains coordinates." She enlarged the hologram. A blue star map appeared, showing a point far outside the solar system. "This is where the human fleet is gathering." Rian frowned. "Why not come straight to Earth?" "Because," Kira said softly, "they're preparing for something. Maybe the Viharix have more forces coming. Maybe the fleet wants to lure them away. Or maybe," she looked at him, her voice dropping, "maybe the fleet doesn't trust us yet." Before Rian could respond, a deep trembling shook the tunnels. Dust fell from the ceiling. Everyone froze. Another tremor followed, this one stronger. Alarm bells rang through the hallways. Rian ran to the surface exit, climbing fast, ignoring Kira calling after him. He emerged into the ruins, and his breath stopped. 3 enormous Viharix destroyers were descending slowly from the clouds. Their thick legs unfolded like giant claws as they anchored themselves onto the ground. Red scanning lights flashed across the city. Rian ducked behind a broken wall. The destroyers were different from the scouts, bigger, heavier, built for pure destruction. Their arrival meant only one thing. The Viharix were preparing to strike back. They wanted to crush any human who had dared to stand tall during the last attack. And they wanted to find the source of the blue ship. Rian watched in horror as Viharix soldiers marched through the streets. They moved in tight formations, their claws scraping against metal and stone. Their insect-like helmets glowing red with aggression. One of them raised a device, projecting an image in the air. A blue silhouette of the human ship flickered, and Viharix voices hissed angrily. Suddenly, something moved in the sky. Rian's heart jumped. A shadow glided through the clouds, sleek, silent, and unmistakably human. But this one was not the same blue ship he had seen earlier. It was larger, shaped like a blade, with a glowing white core pulsing beneath its hull. Rian whispered to himself, "Another one." The Viharix soldiers panicked. Orders were barked. Weapons were raised. The giant destroyers began charging their cannons. A red beam formed at the tip of the largest destroyer, enough to vaporize the entire block. Rian braced himself. The air thickened. Time seemed to slow. The human ship descended with terrifying calmness, moving like a predator that had chosen its prey. It made no noise. Not a single engine sound. Not a single vibration. Then the world flashed blue. A circular shockwave burst from the ship, expanding like a growing ring of light. It passed through the destroyers silently, and the destroyers began to crumble. Not explode, not burn, crumble. Their metal armor turned into glowing dust, falling like snow. The Viharix soldiers screamed, dropping their weapons, their voices filled with disbelief and terror. One shouted, "Impossible, that humans did not have this power." The second ship fired again. Another blue ring swept through the ruins. Rian watched as Viharix soldiers collapsed, their armor breaking apart as if made of sand. Within seconds, the destroyers were gone. The soldiers were gone. The only thing left was silence. Rian stood on shaking legs. He couldn't breathe for a moment. This was power far beyond anything he had imagined. The human fleet was not just strong, they were unstoppable. The ship hovered in the sky for a moment. Its lights dimmed and then brightened slowly, as if studying the ruins. Rian felt the same strange sensation again, the feeling that it was looking directly at him. Then a voice echoed through the air. Not loud, not mechanical.com. "Human, Earth survivors," the voice said. "Stand by. We are returning." Rian felt his knees go weak. The ship rose into the clouds and vanished as silently as it came. He ran back to the tunnels, breathless, shouting the news. The crowd gathered around him. Children clung to their parents. People stared at him as if he carried the answer to everything. "The fleet is coming back," Rian said. "They're not leaving us." Kira stepped forward, her eyes shining. "Then everything is going to change." Rian nodded. "Yes, for the first time, the giants are running." But even as he spoke, he knew this was only the beginning. If the human fleet was preparing for war, then the Viharix were preparing to. And whatever Phase 3 was, it was coming. The news spread through the tunnels like fire. People whispered that the human fleet was returning, that the sky would soon belong to humans again. But hope was a dangerous thing, and no one understood that better than Dr. Kira So. While others celebrated, she studied the messages again and again. Something about them made her uneasy. Rian Calder noticed the worry in her eyes. When the crowd left, he stayed behind. "You're not happy," he said quietly. Kira shook her head. "I am, but something is wrong." She pointed at the message logs on the screen. "The fleet is powerful, too powerful. Rian, no human technology ever looked like this. Not even our best scientists 50 years ago could build ships like the ones we saw." Rian frowned. "Maybe they found new tech while they were gone." Kira looked at him, her face serious. "Or maybe someone helped them." Before Rian could ask what she meant, alarms echoed again through the tunnels. People screamed, running for cover. The ground shook in heavy, angry tremors. Rian grabbed Kira's arm and pulled her toward the exit ladder. The moment they reached the surface, a terrible sight made them stop. A Viherix dropship hovered above the ruins, massive, armored, twice the size of anything Rian had seen before. Its red lights cut through the smoke like blades. Dozens of soldiers poured out, marching in perfect formation. Unlike the earlier scouts, these were elite warriors with black armor and heavy plasma claws. They moved fast, determined, angry. The death of their destroyers had wounded their pride. This time, they were not hunting. They were here to punish. A Viharix commander landed on the street, its armor crowned with sharp bone-like spikes. Its voice boomed through a speaker. "Humans of Earth, the Sky Hunters are not yours. They threaten us all. You will tell us where they are." Rian clenched his fists. The fact that the Viharix feared the human fleet only made him want to laugh. But he stayed quiet. The soldiers swept through the ruins. They scanned walls, opened collapsed buildings, dragged debris away with their claws, searching for any sign of the blue ships, searching for any human who might know something. Rian and Kira hid behind a broken concrete pillar. "They're desperate," Kira whispered, "and desperate enemies are the worst kind." Suddenly the commander turned sharply. Its glowing red eyes locked onto something in the distance. Rian followed its gaze and saw a small group of survivors hiding behind an overturned bus. A woman held two children close. They were frozen with fear. Rian's muscles tightened. He wanted to run to them, but he knew he would get them all killed. The Viherix commander raised its claw, powering a weapon. Kira gasped. But before the commander could fire, a strange deep hum filled the air. Not mechanical, not alien. Rian had heard it only once before, the night the first Viharix warship fell. He looked up, heart pounding. A ripple of silver light appeared in the sky, like a curtain being torn open, and then it stepped out. A massive human warship, far bigger than the blue scout ships, descended slowly through the clouds. Its hull shone like polished steel, its edges sharp like a blade made for war, and at its center glowed a symbol Rian had only seen in old history books: a rising flame with wings, the mark of the original human fleet. People on the ground stared in awe. Even the Viherix froze. The ship spoke with a calm, commanding voice. "Phase 3 activated. Reclaiming Earth territory." The commander roared angrily and opened fire at the sky. Red plasma streaks shot upward, but before they could hit the ship, the beams faded out like dying sparks. The human ship lowered itself, and Rian could feel the weight of its presence on his skin. It was not just a machine. It felt like a living creature, a guardian. Panels on the ship's side slid open. Dozens of human soldiers dropped from the sky in shimmering armor, landing like falling stars between the survivors and the V. Their armor glowed with pale blue lines, and their helmets had golden visors. Each soldier carried a weapon that looked nothing like old Earth rifles, sleek, advanced, humming with quiet energy. The lead soldier stepped forward. Her armor was marked with a flame symbol. She moved with perfect control, full of quiet confidence. Her voice echoed through her helmet. "Viharix forces," she said. "This planet is protected. Withdraw." The Viharix commander hissed. "You are ghosts. You were destroyed." The soldier raised her weapon slightly. "We were reborn." The commander lunged. The soldier fired. A bright blue pulse shot forward, clean and silent. The commander was thrown back, crashing into a pile of rubble. The other Viharix soldiers attacked together, claws glowing. The human soldiers moved like lightning. They were faster than any human Rian had ever seen. Every strike was precise. Every shot was perfect. Within minutes, the Viharix were defeated, their black armor cracked and smoking. The survivors behind the bus cried with relief. Rian felt tears in his own eyes. This was not a dream. Humans were fighting again and winning. The lead soldier looked directly at Rian, even though he hadn't moved from his hiding place. She lifted her helmet. Under the golden visor was the face of a woman with sharp eyes full of determination and deep sadness. "I am Captain Alaren," she said softly, "first commander of the Horizon's Edge. We are here to take Earth back, but we need your help." Rian stepped forward without thinking. "Anything," he whispered. Isla nodded. "Good, because this is only the beginning. The Viharix were never the true enemy. They were only the first wall." Kira's eyes widened. "First wall? What do you mean?" Isla looked toward the sky, her voice dark. "The ones who truly broke humanity have heard that we returned, and now they're coming." Rian felt the ground beneath him turn cold. Earth was finally rising again. But the real war was waiting beyond the stars. The ruins of the old city were still smoking when Captain Ayla Wren removed her helmet and looked around the battlefield. Human soldiers guarded the area while survivors gathered in small circles, whispering in shock. For 50 years, the sky had only brought fear. Now it brought warriors who looked almost unreal, too strong, too fast, too calm. Rian Calder stood close to Isla, still trying to believe everything he had seen. Part of him wanted to speak, to ask 1,000 questions, but his voice stayed locked in his throat. The human fleet was real. The soldiers were real. And the Viharix giants, once unbeatable, had been crushed in minutes. Isla watched Rian silently, her sharp eyes studying him as if measuring something deeper. Finally, she spoke in a soft voice that carried strength. "I have seen people like you on many worlds," she said. "People who survived without food, without safety, without hope, and they became stronger than even soldiers like us." Rian swallowed, unsure what to say. Ayla continued, "Earth needs fighters, and the survivors here, they need someone who knows their suffering." Rian looked away. "I'm not a fighter," he said quietly. "I just tried to stay alive." Isla stepped closer. "That is what a fighter is." Before Rian could reply, a loud rumble shook the ground again. The air vibrated with a growing pulse. Human soldiers immediately moved into position, forming a protective circle around the survivors. Isla lifted her wrist device. "Status." A soldier answered, "Captain, more signals are entering the atmosphere, but they're not via Herix." A cold tension filled the air. Ayla's face hardened. Phase 4 is starting earlier than expected. Above them, the clouds split apart with a deep roar. Rian gasped as 3 gigantic human warships broke through the sky like falling mountains. They were far larger than the horizon's edge, each one shaped like a silver titan, with wings that stretched as wide as city blocks. Their engines glowed like burning stars. People screamed and pointed, unsure whether to be terrified or amazed. Isla stood firm. "Do not fear," she said. "Those ships are ours." The ships positioned themselves above the city, blocking out the sun. When they spoke, their voices echoed across the land like thunder. "Earth, we have returned." Rian felt the words deep inside him, like someone opening a locked door in his chest. Isla raised her hand in salute, and all her soldiers followed. Rian watched, feeling small in the shadow of such power. Kira Sol ran up to them, her face pale with shock. "Captain Isla," she said urgently, "we need to talk. I studied the energy scans from your soldiers and the ships. This technology, this power, it's beyond anything humans ever created. Where did it come from?" Isla took a slow breath. "You're right. It did not come from Earth." Kira stared at her. "So who helped you?" Isla hesitated for the first time since she arrived. "We found an ancient human colony deep in the outer galaxy. They had technology older than the V, older than anything we knew. They rebuilt us, trained us, prepared us, because they knew the real enemy was coming." Rian felt a cold wind brush his skin. "The real enemy?" Isla nodded. "The Viharix were only soldiers following orders. But the empire behind them, the ones who planned the fall of Earth, they are returning now that they know we survived." She looked at the sky, her eyes dark. "Their world is 8 times larger than Earth. Their fleets number in the thousands, and they do not forgive rebellion." For a moment, silence fell like a heavy blanket. Then distant booms echoed across the land. Not thunder, something worse. Rian turned toward the horizon and felt his blood freeze. The sky was turning red. Hundreds of Viharix ships were arriving from the far side of the planet, rising into the air with desperate speed. They formed a thick swarm like a cloud of metal insects. A deep voice shook the air. It came from the Viharix High Commander. "Human reborn fleet, you have broken a law of the galaxy. Surrender or be erased." Isla did not move. Her soldiers stood calmly behind her. The giant human warships glowed brighter, preparing their weapons. Rian took a step forward, even though he wasn't a soldier, even though he had no weapon. Something inside him refused to hide. Isla noticed. "Stay behind me," she said. "This will be violent." Rian shook his head. "Earth is my home. I won't hide while others fight for it." Isla's eyes softened for the first time. "Then you stand with us." The first Viharix beamfighter, massive red strike that lit the entire sky. It screamed toward the ground, powerful enough to destroy the whole city. Rian covered his face. But before the beam could hit, a human warship dropped a shimmering barrier around the ruins. The beam dissolved like smoke against it. The Viharix swarm screamed in rage. They fired again and again, launching wave after wave of red fire. The shield held. Then Isla raised her sword-like weapon and shouted one word: "Return fire." The sky exploded with blue light. Human ships unleashed their fury. Beams of pure energy sliced through the Viharix swarm. Ships exploded one after another. The ground shook with every impact. Rian felt the air heat up, felt the shockwave press against his chest. This was not a battle, it was a storm. A storm humanity had waited 50 years to unleash. Within minutes, the first wave of the Viharix fleet was falling from the sky like burning metal rain. Survivors cried and cheered. Soldiers pressed forward. Isla looked at Rian again. "This is only the beginning," she said. "Earth fights today, but tomorrow, we take the war to them." Rian nodded, his heart burning with new strength. "Then I'm going with you." Isla placed a hand on his shoulder. "Good humanity needs its brave. and above them, the sky filled with blue flames as the human fleet prepared for the next strike because victory on Earth was only phase 4. Real war waited beyond the stars. Rian stood on the launch platform of the horizon's edge as the last fires in the sky slowly faded. The battle over Earth had ended, but the air still carried the heavy smell of smoke and metal. Human ships floated above the clouds like giant guardians, their blue lights pulsing softly. Survivors gathered below, watching with wide eyes. For the first time in 50 years, fear was not in their faces. Hope was. Isla walked up beside Rian, her armor scratched and darkened from the fight. She looked at the sky with a silent, thoughtful expression. "The first battle is ours," she said quietly, "but the real war waits beyond our stars." Rian nodded, trying to steady his breathing. His heart still pounded from everything he had seen: giant enemies falling, human ships roaring like thunder, the sky burning blue. He had lived most of his life hiding from shadows. Now he was preparing to walk into the darkness on purpose. Kira stepped toward them with a small device in her hands, her face serious. "I analyzed the last transmissions from the Viharix," she said. "They sent one final message before their fleet fell. It wasn't a call for help. It was a warning." Isla's eyes narrowed. "Show it." Kira tapped the device, and a projection formed a large alien symbol, glowing red. Beneath it, words appeared in a language the device translated automatically. "The Emperor will end your rebellion." Himself, a cold silence spread around them. Rian felt the hairs on his arms rise. "The Emperor," he whispered. Kira nodded. "The one who planned the fall of Earth. The one who built the one who controls half the galaxy." Rian felt a pressure in his chest. It was fear, but also something else. Something stronger. Ayla's voice cut through the silence. "Then we end him." The soldiers raised their heads with pride, and even the exhausted survivors seemed to stand taller. Rian looked around, amazed again by these humans from the outer galaxy. They moved with confidence, with purpose, with unity. They didn't see Earth as broken. They saw it as a battlefield where the first victory had been earned. An alarm sounded across the platform. "Long-range jump engines online," a voice announced. "All missions preparing for deep space departure." Rian turned to Isla. "So, we really leave now?" Isla placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to come," she said softly. "You have already survived more than most soldiers. Staying here would not make you weak." Rian shook his head immediately. "Earth hid for 50 years, he said. "I don't want to hide anymore." Isla gave a small smile, the kind that showed respect. "Then you come with us." Kira looked anxious. "I'm coming too," she said. "Someone needs to understand your technology. If we're going to fight an empire, we need science as much as strength." Isla nodded. "Then welcome to the fleet." They boarded the ship as the engines hummed, filling the air with a deep vibration. Inside the horizon's edge was alive, people running to stations, screens flashing, weapons charging. Rian felt like he had stepped into the heart of a storm, but he also felt strangely calm. He belonged here now. As the ship rose through the clouds, Earth appeared below them, blue, cracked, wounded, but still beautiful. Rian pressed a hand against the glass. "We'll come back," he whispered. "Stronger." Alice stood next to him. "We will return with victory," she said. "Or not at all." The ship joined the formation of larger vessels waiting in the upper atmosphere. 3 colossal flagships, titans of metal, rotated into position. Their names glowed along their sides. Balor, Eclipse, Hinnesses. These were the war machines built by the ancient human colony. These were the blades that would cut through the galaxy. A deep voice filled every ship. "All crews prepare for interstellar jump. Destination, the Emperor's domain." Rian held the railing as the engines built up energy. He felt the air buzz against his skin. Light gathered in front of the fleet, forming a massive blue tunnel that reached into the emptiness of space. The stars ahead twisted into swirling lines. Kira whispered, "I've never seen anything like this." Isla spoke with a steady voice. "This is the gate we built. It leads to the enemy's home." The ship shook, then surged forward. Rian felt his stomach lift as the fleet entered the blue tunnel. Space stretched and folded around them like a living ocean. Lights flashed past, white, gold, silver. Time felt strange. A second and an hour felt the same. Rian closed his eyes and breathed slowly. When the fleet finally burst out of the tunnel, a new world filled the windows, dark, massive, surrounded by thick red rings. And around it floated the largest armada Rian had ever imagined. Thousands of ships, millions of lights, all pointed at them. A loud voice echoed from the planet. "You dare approach the Empire. You will die here." Rian felt fear grip him, but then Isla stepped forward, her tone cold and steady. "Humanity does not die," she said. "It endures, it adapts, and today, it rises." The entire fleet lit up with blue fire. Isla drew her weapon. "All ships," she commanded. "Attack formation." Rian stood tall beside her, no longer a hidden survivor, now a witness to humanity's rebirth. The first human war beam fired, cutting through the darkness like a sword made of light. The enemy armada answered with their own flood of red fire. Space exploded in every direction. The final war for humanity's future had begun, and Isla and Kira moved forward with the fleet straight into the heart of the empire that once broke Earth, ready to end the cycle forever. The first blast of light shook the horizon's edge so hard that Rian had to grab the railing to stay upright. Alarms screamed across the ship, red lights blinking through the control room. Outside the windows, the galaxy's most dangerous battlefield had exploded into full chaos. Human ships fired blue beams that cut across the dark void like lightning, while the Emperor's armada answered with massive red bursts that lit up space like burning suns. Isla stood tall at the front command station, not moving even when the ship jolted again. Her voice was steady and sharp, shields at full power. Keep formation with the Valor and Eclipse. Do not break. Her soldiers responded instantly, their hands moving across glowing panels. Rian watched them with awe. Even under fire, they looked like they belonged. They're confident, trained, fearless. Kira hurried to the scanner console. "Captain," she said, "the enemy ships are analyzing our energy patterns. They're adjusting their beams to break our shields." Isla nodded without turning. "Expect it. That is why we stay moving. Tell the Valor to prepare counterpulse strike." The ship spun to the left as a huge enemy cruiser fired a burning red wave. The beam just missed them and instead hit one of the smaller human ships behind, slicing it clean in half. Rian's breath caught in his chest. Bodies and debris floated into space like tiny pieces of dust. His stomach twisted painfully. "We can't beat all of these," he whispered without meaning to. Isla heard him. She didn't turn, but her voice was calm. "We're not here to win this in one strike. We're here to open a path." Rian frowned. "A path to what?" Isla finally looked at him, and the answer in her eyes was heavy. "To the Emperor." A deep vibration spread through the ship. A massive shadow drifted in the distance, larger than even the human titans, larger than any warship Rian had ever imagined. It rose from behind the red-ringed planet like a giant waking from sleep. The soldiers fell silent as the thing revealed itself. It wasn't just a ship. It was a fortress, a wandering star wrapped in black metal. Lights glowed along its surface like the eyes of a monster. Kira stared at it with fear. "That can't be real. It's the size of a moon." Isla's expression hardened. "That is the Emperor's throne ship." A voice echoed across all frequencies, cold, deep, and impossibly loud. "Human rebels," it said, each word vibrating through Rian's bones. "Your return is foolish. Your courage is meaningless. You will be erased from the galaxy." The giant fortress opened, revealing thousands of glowing red cannons. Rian felt his heart freeze. "How do we fight that?" Isla turned fully toward him. We get inside it." Rian stared in disbelief. "Inside that?" Kira typed fast on the console. "The fortress has weak points, but they're small, very small. Only a ship our size can reach them." Isla nodded. "Exactly." She pointed to the huge fortress with her chin. "The Valor and Eclipse will keep the enemy busy. We will break through and enter the throne ship." Rian's voice trembled. "What happens when we get inside?" Isla answered without hesitation. "We kill the Emperor." Before Rian could react, the ship shook violently. A red blast hit them directly, sending sparks raining from the ceiling. Alarms turned louder than ever. "Shields at 60%. A soldier shouted. "Another hit like that, and we lose the engines." Isla pressed a button. "Valor, Eclipse, this is Horizon's Edge. Begin diversion pattern." Two deep voices responded immediately. "Understood for Earth." The two Titan ships surged forward like charging beasts, firing huge blue lances that tore through enemy cruisers. Red explosions flashed across space. The enemy turned their attention toward the Titans exactly as Isla planned. "Now," she ordered, "full speed." Straight into the Emperor's shadow engines roared. The Horizon's Edge shot forward, dodging blasts, weaving through thick enemy formations. Rian gripped the railing with both hands as the ship rolled and twisted like a wild animal. He could barely breathe. He could barely think, but he didn't look away. The fortress grew larger and larger until it filled the entire window and endless wall of metal and darkness. Kira shouted, "Target the breach point." 20 kilometers above the central ring, a small glowing section of the fortress appeared on their screen. A tiny place. A dangerous hope. Ayl raised her voice. "Fire plasma drills." Two bright blue spirals shot from the ship's front, tearing into the fortress wall. The enemy immediately noticed. A swarm of red weapon beams fired at them. The ship jerked hard as Ala commanded. "Keep drilling. Hold the line." But Kira's face turned pale. "Captain, enemy intercept units incoming." Rian saw them, dozens of small red fighter craft racing toward them like angry insects. Isla looked to Rian this time. "Take a gunner seat." Rian froze. "Me, you said you will not hide. Now prove it." Something inside Rian snapped into focus. He ran. He strapped himself into the gunner seat. His hands shook, but he forced them still. When the fighters came close, he pulled the trigger. Blue shots fired. One fighter exploded, then another. Rian kept firing. He didn't think. He just reacted faster, sharper than he ever had. Isla watched from the command chair with a small hint of approval. "The breach is opening," Kira shouted. 10 more seconds. Space around them turned into pure chaos. Enemy ships fired from every side. The hull creaked. The lights flickered. 5 seconds. Kira yelled. A massive red beam charged from the fortress aimed directly at them. Isla stood up, her voice thundering. All power to forward shields. Push through. The ship roared, sparks exploding along the walls. 3 seconds. 2-1. The plasma drills broke through. A black tunnel opened. Isla slammed her fist down. Enter. The horizon's edge dived straight into the fortress interior, and darkness swallowed them. The outer battle faded behind thick layers of metal. Inside the fortress, only a dim red glow lit the massive halls. Isla breathed deeply. We're inside. Rian wiped the sweat from his forehead. Kira whispered, now the real mission begins. Isla stepped forward, her eyes burning bright. We find the Emperor, and we finish this war. The horizon's edge drifted deeper into the Emperor's fortress, moving slowly through a tunnel of black metal that stretched farther than any human-made structure Rian had ever seen. The walls hummed with a low vibration, like the fortress itself was breathing. Red lights pulsed every few seconds, revealing thick cables running along the ceiling like veins. This was not just a ship, it felt alive. Ayl stood at the center of the bridge, staring forward without blinking. Maintain silent mode, she ordered. No bright engines. No open comms. We cannot alert the inner guards. Her soldiers worked quietly, their movements smooth even in the tension. Rian felt his heart pounding. He had survived the ruins of Earth, the burning skies, the first space battle, and yet this darkness felt more dangerous than everything else. Kira studied her panel, her forehead tight with worry. Captain, she whispered, I'm picking up energy waves. Something big is moving inside these halls. Isla nodded. Expect it. This fortress holds thousands of Iharic soldiers, but they aren't our main concern. She pointed toward the deeper tunnels. The Emperor is somewhere in the core. Rian swallowed hard. How do we reach him? Isla looked at him with calm determination. We fight our way through. A sudden metallic sound echoed through the hall. A scraping noise, distant but deep. Something heavy. Something huge. Rian looked toward the window, his blood turning cold. What was that? Kira checked her scan again. Movement. No, not movement. Something waking up. The ship rounded a corner, and everyone sucked in a breath. A massive chamber opened before them. Towers of black machinery rose like skyscrapers. Red fog drifted through the air, and in the center of the chamber stood rows and rows of giant armored shapes. At first, Rian thought they were statues tall enough to touch the ceiling, with long arms and glowing red eyes. But then one of them moved very slowly. Its head turned toward the ship captain. Kira whispered, those are not machines. They're soldiers. Isla's expression darkened. Ancient Viherix titans. Larger, older, and stronger than the ones we faced on Earth. The Emperor kept his strongest warriors here, sleeping. Another scraping sound echoed. Then another. Red eyes blinked to life across the entire chamber. 100, 200, 1,000. Their armored bodies shifted, stretching like monsters waking from a long dream. Rian felt fear like a punch to the stomach. Isla, we can't fight all of that. Isla didn't move. Her voice was steady, serious. We don't need to fight them. We only need to outrun them. Outrun them, Rian shouted. Helm, Isla commanded. Maximum silent speed. Hug the left wall. Do not draw attention. The horizon's edge moved slowly across the side of the chamber. The giant soldiers turned their heads, watching it, but they didn't step forward. Rian held his breath. Every second felt like an hour. If even one titan decided to attack, they would be crushed. For a moment, it seemed they would make it through. Then a tiny spark popped from one of the ceiling cables. Just one small burst of light. The nearest titan turned fully toward the ship. It let out a deep roar that shook the entire chamber. Ayla's eyes widened. They're awake. Full speed now. The ship blasted forward as every titan soldier took a step, then another, then began to run. The ground shook under their weight. Rian stared as hundreds of giant warriors chased them, their massive arms swinging, their glowing weapons crackling with red energy. Kira shouted over the alarms. The exit tunnel is 2 kilometers ahead. Move, Isla ordered. The horizon's edge roared toward the tunnel opening as the giants closed behind them. One titan leaped forward, slamming its hand against the side of the ship, almost crushing the hull. Metal screeched. Sparks exploded across the deck. Rian held on as the ship spun wildly to the right. Isla barked, counterbalanced thrusters. The ship stabilized just enough to keep flying, but the titans were not slowing. Another reached forward with a glowing blade arm, aiming to slice the ship in half. Dive, Isla yelled. The ship dropped suddenly, barely missing the blow. The giant's slash carved a burning line through the air behind them. Kira screamed, tunnel ahead. 10 seconds. But the titans were too close now. One jump could crush them. Isla gripped her chair tightly. All rear cannons. The back of the ship exploded with blue plasma. The blast hit the front line of titans, throwing several backwards. The ground trembled as they fell like metal mountains. Rian gasped. That bought us time. Not enough, Kira whispered. The titans charged again, faster this time. 5 seconds. She called. The ship raced forward for. The titans reached out. 3. One giant almost grabbed the engine. TWO. Isla shouted. Boost. The ship surged forward like a launched missile one, and shot into the tunnel. The Titans slammed into the tunnel entrance behind them, too huge to fit. Their roars echoed through the metal corridors, promising pain when they met again. Inside the narrow tunnel, everything grew quiet to quiet. Rian slumped against the wall, gasping for air. I thought we were dead. Isla didn't relax. Her eyes stayed fixed ahead. We live. But the Titans are not the Emperor's final defense. Kira checked her scanner one more time. Her voice trembled. Captain, I have found something ahead. Something big. How big? Isla asked. Kira's eyes slowly lifted from the screen wide, frightened. Bigger than the Titans. Before anyone could respond, the tunnel opened into another chamber. A single figure stood in the center, tall, outlined in red fire, wearing armor made from an entire star. Its presence made the air burn. The giant raised its head slowly, looking directly at the horizon's edge. Rion's heart stopped. Kira whispered, voice breaking, "That's him." Isla stood fully straight, her jaw set. The Emperor.